media platforms. Now you know that Alliance on the Move is aired weekly every Saturday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's always a pleasure to be here speaking with you, bringing you the facts, talking to you about what is happening around the country. Now tonight I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan this evening. So, Mr. Ramjatan, welcome to tonight's program.
Thanks,
And
Loretta. Thanks very much. And welcome to all Babishans viewing us and listening to us. I understand that this is a certainty for so many in Berbice to get the other view as against government. But I would like to start off by congratulating all those who did very well at the NGSA, the CSEC, and the CAPE exams. And we are doing very well. I must say that we are doing very well. Our students are doing magnificently in all subject areas, I understand, and that we still have a far way to go in being the best in the Caribbean. But based on the challenges we've had over the years, I must say that the CSEC and Cape, we are doing wonderful. As to the NGSA, I must congratulate. I notice a couple of my friends' children have been doing very, very well, and I want to congratulate all of them. And I'm certain you too, Juretta, would want to congratulate them.
yes, I will definitely like to say a special congratulations to all the students that wrote those exams because looking, I was scrolling Facebook today and I was seeing all the congratulatory messages going out, and what I can say is that it took me down memory lane to when I myself wrote those exams, and I know how nervous you are to actually receive your grades and so forth when those results are coming out. So to the students that did not do so well, I know there's a lot of congratulations to who did well, but for the students that did not do so well, who probably disappointed a bit in their results, I would just like to say it's not the end of the road, and that once you have life, there's always an opportunity to do better and to do great things in life. So I know for myself, on a lighter note, Mr. Ramsden, I can tell you for myself, I wrote my exams in Region 7, in Bartica
Mhm.
for Common Entrance and for CSEC. Back then, we were only allowed to write 8 subjects because we had no more teachers to teach any more
With
subjects.
subjects,
So
yeah.
we are elevating, things are getting a whole lot better, but 8 subject alone did not just stop me. You keep going on further. But I know a lot of times persons see us in the public, and they don't get the softer side of who we are. So allow me to just invite you to just share some of your comments on your educational pathway thus far.
Well, yeah. Thanks for allowing me to do that. I was a primary school student at Ramakrishna Dharmic Sabha School here in Bar Street. My father was from Quarantine, but he got transferred to Georgetown, and we were living in Lamaha Street at the time when I wrote my common entrance, it used to be called then. And Ramakrishna was a school that always did very, very well. It used to get a number of the top students. I was not one of the top students, and I went to North Georgetown. I worked really hard, in my opinion, to go to Queens because everybody dream of going to Queens, but I did not. I went to North Georgetown, and in the very first year, after doing the very year there, my father got transferred back to Manchester in quarantine, and we then went and start living up there, and there I wrote my it was then ordinary levels, we call it O
O
levels
levels.
exams,
Yeah.
right? And I did very, very well at Quarantine High School. I came out as probably, I think at that time it was number one or number two student, and got 8 subjects with about 4 A's and all of that. And then I went straight into university and started my law degree, part one LLB there, and then part two and three in Caville campus in University of West Indies. Got through with an honors degree, and then to law school. And I graduated very young as a lawyer. 1984, I came back in September as a qualified lawyer at the age of 24 years. And since that time, I've been a lawyer. And I want to tell young people that even though you don't get the schools that you would like to, you have a second opportunity of putting in the work to do even greater than some of them who went to all the brightest schools, as they used to say those days, the more reputable schools, as they call them. And a number of people have done very well, as a matter of fact. I know of a number of the fellows who are lawyers and doctors from North Georgetown, and of course from Corentyne High School, where I was transferred to. It is now called J.C. Chandy Singh. I did back from second form to fifth form. I was there. And it is a lot of work, of course. You got to hear your parents. And luckily my father was a headmaster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a headmaster. And he helped me along the way, at least in getting all my books and all of that. And so you were never really short of anything. But I remember some very hard days. You had to get up very early to catch the bus from number 47 Village to Rosal Town. And the bus would stop and pick up about 100 passengers, really. And by the time you reach school, and the same thing for the afternoon. Yet we had time to play our cricket after we came back afternoon and all of that. And I like that kind of all-round performer, because these days I notice a lot of people, as soon as they come back home, they got to go to some lessons.
Yeah.
Well, we used to play ball. We call it cricket, but we play ball afternoon time. And it was a thing that, I think put the physical constitution in better order for the mental abilities. And so I would urge people also to take part in games and physical education at that young age. And I was a lover of West Indies cricket, of course. During those days, West Indies were beating up all the teams in the world. And so you had something to be proud of. Yeah, Clive Lloyd and Viv Richards and so on. So I am urging students on who might not have done better, as you did just now, that indeed, please take it to heart, go and do your best. And even if you can't do your best academically, the education at the primary and a secondary level is good enough to make you a good vocational student who can go on to do mechanics or technicians in auto, whatever else it is. But a good foundation in a secondary education is especially helpful for your entire life thereafter. Nobody could fool you around. Nobody could then cheat you and deceive you. Yeah. English and especially maths, very much appreciated if you could get those, at least understand the basics of them at the secondary level, and you can think for yourselves thereafter. So once again, congratulations.
The business community too, Mr. Ramjit, I know that a lot of persons in the business community, small business owners and so forth, a lot of those persons that get an opportunity to go far in school to get a tertiary education or so forth, but that did not make them less capable of achieving everything that they've achieved thus far. I know that if we read in the world news right now, we'll know that the majority of millionaires in today's society are first generational millionaires, because those are persons who did not have this whole family inheritance to hold on to, daddy or grandfather or nobody didn't leave something, but they were brave enough to go out in this globalized world with utilization of technology and all of that, and to do what they're good at, and to make that impact. And today those persons are doing exceedingly well. So again, congratulations to the students that did excellent, way to go, and to the students that are feeling a little down because you didn't do so well. Hey, it's not the end of the road for you. We all have tough times, and once you have life, you have an opportunity to get up and go at whatever it is you're great at. We're all great at something. All right. So I think that's a good way for us to start the program. And we'll have to do a complete switch now, Mr. Ramjatan, because on a not so bright note, we have a terrible incident that occurred today with the death of the young businessman. What are your comments on that?
Oh yes, like we are a country with sudden seasons, as it were. We were celebrating just now the congratulations for the students.
Yeah.
No, we gone to the sad part of where a bright young man, businessman, Chris Passat, I think is his name.
21 year.
Yeah, and he open up a nice business there. And we now have to do bereavement for him. And condolences to the family. I saw on Facebook his father in tears saying when he got the news there, Radesh, I think is his father's name, and Devin. It is one of the most painful experiences I have read about. Luckily, you haven't experienced it. But when your son is going to be killed and you as father there, knowing not what to do, confused, trying to, deny that it ever happened and all of that. And I could see that in his eyes. But this is what is happening too many times in our country now. And the rampant thievery and murder that is happening all across the land, in all the regions of the country, is horrible. And it is horrifying the citizenry. It is not a nice thing. And I believe that lots more resources will have to be put in so that we can get, this kind of crime situation under control. And the brutality with which it was done, the knife being poked right through the neck, as it were, complete intention to kill there. I understand the police has done good work in catching the person and some of the possessions that they stole from Chris. But a young person, someone who could have done very well for this country and for his family and for his community, has gone. And too many it is happening to. And so we have to all try in our own ways, government, the community, the opposition, we individuals too, to bring a halt to this thing. Because if all are not involved in the solution here, Joretta, all will be consumed, as Martin Carter told us and instructed us. If we are not involved, we are going to all be consumed. And we must try as best as possible to do whatever we can do in our own way to getting this set of murders, which is growing very, very rapidly downwards.
Well, I know that there is a quote that goes somewhat as the only thing necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And a lot of times when I read about these crime, and especially when it comes to like armed robbery and so many other things, what is clear to me is that Guyana is a pretty small country, and at some point in time, somebody must know the people who are actually committing these offenses, these crimes in society. And I say that to say that persons need not shelter these characters in society. A lot of times, I've been looking at the videos that are circulating online of recent with persons being robbed in broad daylight, and you see people leisurely walking by whilst a robbery is going on, and for me, that is a terrible sight, because it's as though we're getting to a point in society in which we become numb to these circumstances, and it's like, oh well, if it's not me or my family, well, it doesn't concern me, minding your own business kind of attitude. And we need to remove ourselves from that mindset, because at some point in time it will be us or our family, and then we're going to feel it just as much. So we, as a society, I keep saying, we need to come together and we need to put a stop to these things. We need to identify who are linked to crime in the community. We need to call them out, because we should not be waiting until they hurt someone, they kill someone, for us to be speaking out about it. It's very,
I agree with you totally. I agree with you totally. And as part of the administration of the coalition when we were there, 2015, 2020, that was a big aspect of the project and civil security, or citizens' security, the strengthening of those programs to ensure that witnesses will come forward and give testimony against those who would have done wrong. That's an important aspect. The police being seen as big brothers rather than bullies is especially important too, so that they could solve these crimes. Getting street lighting in those areas where you have high density of criminality occurring, making sure that in those areas that you put up the lights and you kind of get people to, see what is going on even nighttime. It is important. And then, of course, training at-risk young people.
Yeah.
Young people who are at risk of becoming criminals. Getting the community, having a set of leaders to identify them, whether from the local authority or whether from the regional democratic or the municipality within that area, getting some elders, teachers, former headmasters, and so on, as constituting a core group of people. Look, you see that family there? They've had a life that is, somewhat dysfunctional. That young man there might very well turn out to be a bad boy. But instead of just allowing it to happen, you then go and you ask the family, please, we are going to look after him. You have to do a 6 months program as an auto electrician with an auto electrician who is qualified and working. And then we give them $70 US per month as expenses to go to that work, and ask the also the teacher, the auto electrician or the mechanic or whosoever else, the person that fix up your fingernail and cut your hair, the hairdresser and so on for girls and so on. And it worked. Over 1,400 to 1,500 young people from various areas, or it's more than that, could very well be about 2,400 people under the citizen security. And it helped.
Yeah.
The crime situation was coming down all the time during that 5 years. And it's no boast. The quarantine people to whom I'm speaking here can appreciate that piracy came down to almost zero in quarantine. We had a couple in Marijuana and in that region where the Venezuelans were stealing the boats and engines of people and so on. But working along with the people in Suriname and the Suriname Coast Guard and police and our Coast Guard, and getting all of them in a neat collaboration, saw to it that those who were the suspects, we brought it down. Quarantine people must appreciate that piracy almost came down. And we also solved some major murders in Berbice. The one in Blackbush where they went and they stole the dieseline and so on. And people were saying that, they wanted to racialize the thing. Is black people gone and do the thing and so on? We understand there's some East Indian boys that gone and do the mischief. But we were being diverted, but the police managed to catch them. And luckily, some of the people who had seen who was going down the dam spoke out. And that is important for information as to who you can catch. Because if people shut up and do not speak as to whereabouts of people in the area at the time when the crime was allegedly committed, you're not going to solve it. And so it is important that you have community members speaking out and not, wanting to stay silent. Silence is always violence. Silence is violence. You got to speak out. And even if it's your brother or your close relatives or friend, you got to speak out, because it is wrong to commit harm to another person like that. And so there are many things that still we have to do. Creating employment, training, getting people to be involved and becoming more educated and understanding that it is a wrong thing. It is so many things. But it is a sad day indeed that, this happened to the Prasad's family. And it's a real dark time, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, our sincere condolences to that family. Well, Mr. Ramsden, you touched on something very important when you were speaking about the programs that was had under the coalition. And we need to examine more of these of such programs and so forth, because the psychology of crime altogether, it is vast. And in the same breath that course that we can say it takes a community to raise a child, in the same breath we can also agree that it takes a community to break a child too. So if you have a positive society that you're growing up in, it is natural that you're going to have those adults that are molding you in the right direction. But then also we need to acknowledge the fact that we have persons growing up in society, born and raised in societies that are toxic. And for those persons, we need to identify those young people from little children, and we need to provide some system of mentorship so that they have a shining light to look up to. And on that note, I honestly would say that the churches, those religious bodies, play a very major role in going into certain communities and helping to fix this. It cannot be done independently. It's a collective effort to actually raise the bar and get rid of crime in our country altogether. So I mean, that's situation there with Chris
Yeah.
Basad. I mean, it's so hurtful, and the sad, what is worse is that it's not an isolated case. We have a repetition of these matters, and we cannot just be silent about it. We have to act. We have to do something about it.
No, well, the thing that has got to be done, a lot of people laughed me, when I did the curfew. And that curfew helped a lot of domestic violence cases. We have a rum shop mentality, especially in quarantine. Viewers in Berbice will know that. Just like the sun rises on the east, you have a situation whereby it is a truth, it's a notorious fact that indeed the rum shop culture in quarantine creates a massive set of domestic violence. And that also leads to suicides. So that's another development, the social ills. What we got to do is to, tell people that around a certain time, well, the COVID times have created what is called a certain curfew now, and people got to go home. But when it was not, and I had put up a curfew, people laugh. Oh, Ramsutan hadn't good. We had to do curfew. People can go and drink the liquor at any time they want. It's freedom. But freedoms must be with responsibility and accountability. And nobody is free if they're going to then do as they like to the harm of other people. Get themselves drunk, especially on Friday afternoon, and then go and beat up their wife whole night, and then probably the whole Saturday too, and so on. Because the girl asked them some question, why you got to go drink out all the money and this and that and what. And that we got to do things like that. We also have to spend some more monies, especially in Berbice there, where the liquor drinking and binge drinking. A survey was done as to household drinking in the Caribbean. And do you know the country with the highest binge drinking rate? Binge drinking is to drinking and you don't want to stop. The highest rates of drinking, it was in Guyana.
Wow.
We are, yes, yes. And we are so bad in that regard, we are doing harm to ourselves because the next day you can't get up and work. I remember repairing my 47 property there, where my mother lives. And when you'd expect, okay, the fellas work and they're going to turn up back Monday morning, most times it's Tuesday morning they come in. Because the Monday they say, Mommy, enable work, like they make the money already, some of these fellas. And so it is important that we do all of that. But the other aspect of the matter is that we have to create for especially our young children a number of the cricket grounds, the basketball courts in New Amsterdam, all these other facilities. They have to go up there. So instead of sending them to the rum shop and they ain't got nothing to do, or the beer shop and all of that, and they're wasting their money on all these liquor and so on, and then getting drunk and doing wrong things, idle things, and even then going on to marijuana and cocaine and all of that. You let them play games, buy a whole set of 100 balls and give them, arrange a coach in the area and so on. And almost all the villages have grounds or areas that ought to be made into grounds. That is an area where we got to highlight. And as part of the citizen security program, which we had wanted to extend by a further 5 years, utilizing instead of the IDB monies, utilizing the oil monies, because by that time we had realized that we're going to get a lot of money in the oil. That was, I think, a $15 million US project. What we do now is to take $15 million out of the oil monies to do back all of these places and to get the gears for the children, to make the concrete strip, especially if you know rainy season, you're going to get the mud and the pitch going to get water and you can't play cricket. Make some concrete strips. I did it as arranged it that for the Gandhi Youth Cricket Club, and we got 2 concrete strips there. So even in the rainy weather, you can go and play cricket or at least practice and so on and keep yourself fit. That is what we got to do. But some of these guys in administration today, I don't think that they understand what they have to do. And they're doing the thing just for a motive to show, you know. You got to go with it.
They're just concerned with spending the money.
Exactly. So it's a number of things that we as citizens, opposition in parliament, have to demand that the government does it. And I believe that all of those, you know, when you start repairing the windows that have been broken, a famous writer had indicated the broken windows theory. When you go to an area and all the windows broke up, you just start repairing the windows and make the place look a little better. The crime rates dropped, the surveys concluded. So we got to start doing that. Make great our land spaces, give them by some land mowers and so on, so that they can make the ground look good. And then people will start going out there and rather than getting idle and doing. So there are some projects that ought to be done so that we can get it done. And especially in Berbice there, for the Berbicians, Region 5 and 6. They have produced some of the best cricketers. In my day, it was Kalicharan and Kanai and Fredericks and all of them from Quarantine area and Berbice and so on. So many of them. And then the lesser knowns that played for Guyana only. But we have to come back to those days. And it is a big, big thing that we can do. And with the monies that we got in the oil monies, arrange that we take some monies there. Don't go and try now to say that Bharat Jagdeo and only Irfan Ali must be the 2 and Ashni Singh, the 3 that can spend that monies. We have put it in an account in the Federal Reserve Bank of America. And the parliamentarians can have through what you call a committee called the withdrawals committee or something like that. They can then, we parliamentarians can lobby them to take it out for that purpose and to ensure that we have scrutiny that the money is spent well, not like what is happening with the flood relief and so much of thievery. Now they're coming around to understanding that if you set up the system properly, one set of people who not deserve any money will get it, and the others who deserve it will not get. It is rampant corruption. And so it calls for leadership, this crime situation. It calls for a multifaceted approach to solving all these things, social and not necessarily enforcement alone. So many other things you got to do. And I hope that the PPP administration are going to listen to us and proceed to get these things done.
Well, I know, Mr. Ramsden, I don't even your suggestions on using the oil resources. You know that we're not moving in that the PPP administration is not moving in that direction. I note that a lot of the comments that comes from the vice president and the other ministers basically say that, oh, look what we're doing here, and we haven't touched the oil money, and it has become like a motto for them, and we haven't touched the oil money. But persons need to understand that while they're saying that they haven't touched the oil money, because they cannot just touch it by themselves. They have to be in consultation with other bodies before they can use that money. That's why they haven't touched it. But in the same breath, they're not touching the money, and they are racking up tremendous debt for the country because they need to get money from somewhere to spend. So yes, they're not touching that money, but they are borrowing money to do whatever else needs to be done. So I think that bit of nasty politics will continue until they figure a way out in which they wouldn't have to account for spending the money altogether. And I know they've been working tirelessly on that. But Mr. Ramjitan, as we move forward with tonight's discussion, I know there's a matter that I want to get your comments on, because I know you're a legal mind and I am nowhere a legal mind. I deal mostly with numbers. But we would have noticed the situation with Paul Slow. We would have seen a news broadcast coming up. We saw a live video with Mr. Paul Slow going to court, and some persons attempting to arrest him there. Persons not dressed in uniform, no badges or anything. And it was being reported that they were attempting to arrest him for the matter that he appeared before the court for on the day. But he was about to appear before the court for.
Yeah. Well, Joretta, the PPP obviously have instructed the police force, especially that faction of the police force that they can instruct and who are going to take the instructions. I know for a fact that that is what is going on, because I've spoken to some leading members of the police force and they say, well, they can't do anything. And there are some East Indian elements inside of the police force that are allowing themselves to be taken up by the instructions of the PPP. They went to arrest a man who was there to meet the summons that he knew about. The summons had said that he must appear before court on that day at 9 o'clock. And he was there at about 8:45. And there it is, to attend court for the charges that were supposed to be read out to him. Because on the first occasion, he had missed court. He was inside, I think, some island in the Caribbean, because he is also the chief security officer for the West Indies Cricket Board. And so he was doing something there, or CPL or something like that. But he couldn't come in time for that court case. And now that he came in through the airport, they didn't arrest him at the airport, nowhere. But there it is. He is there now at the court. Somebody was telling him to pass him through the chute or something like that, so that he can embarrass him as a senior assistant officer, assistant commissioner, senior officer of the police force, and so on. That is the nature of the PPP. They want to embarrass people, and that is the whole abuse of power. It is called abuse of power, abuse of the process. There it is. The magistrate said she didn't issue an arrest warrant on the previous occasion a couple of weeks back or months back. She simply said, well, the case is put down for this date and he should be there. And he had publicly stated that he was going to come into the country to answer the charges. And there the man was. Why you want to arrest him? Touching him with like that is constitute assault. Trying to detain him is false imprisonment. He should file some action against them.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. If there's legal pathway for him to deal with that? Because for someone like me looking on, like I said, I'm not a legal mind, and you're looking at it, and it's harassment, it's assault. You see someone grabbing at his pants and his belt, the next one grabbing on his arm, and it is crazy. We're sitting here and we're like, what? This is not
but when you are an administration and you want to drive fear into people, you're going to utilize some of the goons that you got at your disposal to do exactly that. The entire arrangement here, Joretta, if people did not know, is for fear to be driven into the minds of the Guyanese. Oh, boy, look what they're doing to, if they could do that to Paul Slow, what they're not going to do to me.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean. But also there is a secondary purpose or another primary purpose. And that is to distract from their malgovernance, their misfeasance in public office. When you start making all of them journalists that are there come to the conclusion that this is big news story as against the corruption for the flood relief, you distract from PPP ineptitude and disgustingly bad governance, and you're gone and you deal with the issues of a Paul Slow, you know. But even inherent in the Paul Slow thing, it is showing that the police force too are being very unprofessional, and that is a governmental problem. You know, it's leadership in government. You got to stop policemen from doing that. Just like the policemen stopping the cars all over, and some people are saying that they got to leave a small piece for them and so on. Why you got to stop cars like that? And so it is a tremendously well deliberated upon thing. You know, shoot them when they resist and so on. And that is why we have also some extrajudicial killings happening now. Arrest them when there is no reason to arrest, like Nepal Slow Clays. Because you gone to Essequibo, the president went to Essequibo, he come back. Next thing, Orrin Boston is killed because he probably heard complaints about what is happening on there, and he probably tell now the commissioner and the commissioner or the minister, and then next thing you know, SWAT team gone to arrest a businessman that has been dancing almost every night at people wedding house or in Boston. Yeah. Where you got about 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning and point gun and shoot him whilst he's lying asleep with his wife. And before that, they gone into other people's house. One is my client, another Orrin. And he and everybody was tied up with this plastic kind of handcuff that they got. Well, what is wrong with this police force? And then releasing them thereafter, terrorizing them. I mean, the thing is going real bad, and you know, this is not good. All the work that we did in the 5-year period from 2015 to 2020, especially the British security sector reform project, all have been dismantled, I understand.
Yeah, that's what I was
all have been dismantled. The professionalization. Look, that Orrin Boston matter is still shocking. A most horrifying event. Horrible, you know. The thing is that any ordinary detective from Anna Regina could have gone and arrested a man if you wanted him for some suspicious...
In bright daylight.
In daylight.
Yeah.
But all of this goes to prove that the PPP wants a certain faction of that police force to be used as presidential guards to look after Jagdeo and Irfan Ali. Yeah. That they're the bosses. They could go and tell people, go down there, SWAT, you deal with them. And the SWAT, which is supposed to be professional too, you know, I mean, up to now, we haven't heard an explanation from the commissioner or the crime chief as to why the SWAT went there or the SWAT went there. Why were they squatting in Essequibo, the SWAT?
Yep.
It is terrible. And there is absolutely nothing that Essequibo is the most peaceful of the counties in Guyana. You don't have any of them things that require a SWAT up there. There may be things happening in Region 1, which is part of Essequibo too, but hardly likely that you'll require. Army is there, and they could take care of that. But you sending down somebody, the whole team of SWAT, to go and look after the arrest of Orrin Boston.
But Mr. Ramzan, you would recall also how they dealt with Christopher Jones and his family in the dead of night also. So right. This is something that is ongoing, and the police force, if I must say, is that it appears as though some officers are afraid to even stay true to their oath.
That is true, because let me tell you something. Under the Constitution, political instructions that are illegal or political instructions to the police force that are against the standing orders, yep. The policeman could stand up to the minister and say, haul your tail, if not the other derriere. You know, the whole point of it is that the police can stand up to them. You can't tell a policeman, because we train policemen in a whole set of months of training. And they know, and especially if they're senior police officers, they should know that, hey, minister, don't tell me that nonsense. Officer, the president, don't tell me. And the officer, the president, even the president, Paul Slow said, and I believe Paul Slow is against that fella that can't show me first degree, Irfan Ali. when Paul Slow said that he called me to tell me, make sure that these other police officers get deputy commissioner and minute 1 so on. Look at what he's interfering with the police service commission. I believe Paul Slow. And let me tell you something. That kind of thing has always been the problem with the PPP. They don't like institutions to be insular from the politics of the day. That is what they're doing all around with state agencies and organizations like the EPA and all of that. The EPA is a professional enforcement body. Today, they knock off the Vince Adams and they put in some people there who they got now as their cronies. So they can go cut down mangrove and all kind of thing, and people can go and do all manner of things. That kind of enforcement where the politicos get involved with will create the dismantling of this democracy, as I have already said earlier in the term of the PPP. They're dismantling it. And
But
Guyanese
people don't like democracy. The
That's
people
right.
doesn't like democracy. It is it's quite astonishing. It's amazing to look at and listen to the ministers of the PPP speak about democracy. When Mr. Ramjet, and I know you often say that you were in the belly of the beast, and you can speak firsthand as to the fact that the PPP does not uphold any concept of democracy whatsoever. They utilize the terminology of democracy just to give this show to some of their supporters, but they do not believe in democracy at all. I've been getting my reading on, and I think I have a lot to consult with you on. But even in the political party, the makeup of the PPP, they do not practice a democratic system altogether. Hence, we even had Irfan Ali coming out as their presidential candidate. So the talk about the PPP and democracy, it's just a bluff and absolutely nothing more. But another concept that they abuse is the constitutionality. And on that note, I actually want us to go into this discussion as to the court case that was won by the coalition. I know Roysdale Ford was our lawyer that championed that case. Speak to us, Mr. Ramjet.
Oh yes. You're talking about the Mahipal case, the constitutional
Correct.
agencies.
And the constitutional agencies and the way in which they were budgeted for under the PPP. When we came into office, we corrected that, and as soon as the PPP went back into office, as they did to every other decision that was put in place by the coalition, they overturned it right back to what it was before. And that case was before the court, and the coalition won that case.
You know, luckily I'm in my library, and I think there was an Article 222 or 2. There is an article in the Constitution that says that certain constitutional agencies, like the Supreme Court, Parliament, the commissions, and so on, these bodies must be financially independent of the government of the day. And we, in an article in the Constitution since 2001, I think, we made a provision therein for financial autonomy of these constitutional entities. To give meaning to that provision, the PPP were supposed to align the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act to ensure that these arrangements for the constitutional agencies getting their monies, like the salaries for judges and Parliament's office being run independently of the executive branch and so on, and these other agencies, audit office and so, Auditor General's office and so on,
GCOM,
they did not pass the act. Even Public Accounts Committee, as you know, they did not pass any act or amend the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act to do that, to give meaning for this constitutional provision. Soon as we went into government, however, we gave immediately teeth to that provision by stating that there is going to be a method by which the National Assembly, not the finance minister, must ensure the passage of whatever allocation these people, these institutions are going to ask for. Like the head of it, the chancellor would say, I want $3 billion for the year 2021 because the salary of the judges are this. They have to buy law books. They got to buy stationery. We got to pay the office staff. We got to do a whole set of things. And it is not something that should go back, in my opinion, to the Minister of Finance, Ashni Singh. And so we pass that act and give the thing teeth, the constitutional provision, and indeed it operated well under our administration. As soon as the PPP got into government, installed as they were, petitions and so on still going on, they don't like us to call them installed, but whatever it is, even if they're officially there by virtue of legal whatever, legitimately there, let us assume that. What it is, you know, must continue what the Constitution says you must do in relation to constitutional entities. They're gonna upturn, revoke that act that we passed, which amended the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, and says that all these things must go back to the Finance Ministry, and that constitutional entities' budget must be like ministerial budget agencies. Now, that is total trash. That is very much against the constitutional provision that we had put in since 2001 under 222A, I think it was. And so that is what was carried to court. And indeed, the court ruled, in my interpretation of what the judge said, the court so ruled that these things, as was done by the Constitution and in the 2015 amendment, are very much in accordance with the Constitution. And what they did by revoking it are totally unconstitutional. And even the Attorney General somehow has misinterpreted what Justice Harnanan has said. And I don't know where he's getting his information from, but I have a copy of the judgment now. And the judgment is making it clear.
Very clear.
Now, the judge probably was a little hesitant in saying the word unconstitutional on the various occasions, but he said on very many occasions inside of that judgment that indeed there are two routes in relation to how budgetary allocations must be passed. One for the budget agencies and another for constitutional entities that we are talking about. And that got to be brought to the National Assembly and arrangements made there for the thing. And since it's a direct charge on the consolidated fund, the fund from which we collect the monies of these people and these institutions, that is how it should be. But of course, Anil Nandalal is saying that a lot of things seems to be won by him. And, I can't put it clearer terms, but that which the judge made as the main issues of the case was won by Roysdale Ford. And the declarations, I think what will be nice is for the judge to, when they draft out the court order, we'll take a look at what the court order is as to what the judge has ruled in the summary form, the one page. Yeah.
It's not the first time that Mr. Nandal actually got it wrong and kind of mixed up what was being said, because in the matter of the parliamentary secretaries, he went publicly and said, well, if they can't sit in their seat, they can get a chair and put alongside. So it's not the first time we're hearing misinterpretation of the judgment from him altogether. But what I can recall precisely is when the PPP was making arguments as to why they are including the constitutional agencies into the budget and why they were upturning what we did when we went into office. one of the reasons given, I remember specifically Onish Waldron, and she's qualified in law also. I remember specifically she was saying that, oh, it was too fragmented. The budget was too fragmented, and when they were looking at it, it's like they were looking at a piece of it. I was looking at this in total amusement to hear that this is the argument that is coming from the government side. But thankfully, the matter went to court, and obviously the court in better sense, and as the law provides, as the constitution states, the court is upholding that, and hence the judgment that was given. But the PPP, Mr. Ramstan, they have not changed their stripes at all.
No, 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 they have not changed their stripe. I remember in a similar matter I did with Anil Nandala, it was the budget cut case prior to 2015. Remember when we in 2011 had cut the budget?
Oh yes.
Remember? And he had indicated, no, this is an executive branch thing. We can't cut the budget. But he was mistaken because he misapprehended that in relation to matters budgetary, it is not exclusively the function of the finance minister. It is the legislature. There is an overlap of functions here. Although we have the doctrine of separation of powers in Guyana, judiciary, Parliament, the legislative, and the executive branch. The legislative branch, that is the members of Parliament, have a big role in passing the budget. So it is not that which Ashni Singh wants as the member of the executive. Ashni could present the budget, but we could cut if we got the majority in Parliament. And that is what we did in 2011. With the support of the then PNC or APNU, we managed to cut all the wastage that they were trying to do and to give and all of that. And that, he said we couldn't do that. And then we carried the matter to court, or he carried the matter to court. And I remember Ian Chang ruling that it can't be cut on an interpretation that was very, very, surprising from a very bright Chief Justice. He's regarded, in my opinion, as one of the better Chief Justices in around the Caribbean. Not because he's my friend, but he got a brain out of this world. We appealed the matter. And the appeal court, Carl Singh, Chancellor, and the two other judges ruled in our favor that budgets could be cut. And there's a process in the standing orders of Parliament to do that. And then the law states that indeed, for the reduction of the budget in the Constitution, a private member could ask for reductions in the budget. You can't increase the allocation, but you could reduce it. And it is so clear. And he, although we won the case in the Court of Appeal, he gave the impression that he has won it. I don't understand Anil these days. Everything he winning. And, he like...
Well, I don't try to. I don't try to understand.
But I want that to be understood. I want that to be understood by Barbicians here. That, all this talk and gallivanting by my boy. I mean, me and he's still friends. The trouble is that he talks too much. He likes to hear himself. That's the problem I find with him. But that aside, I am glad that the matter was taken to court. I am glad that the lawyer, Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford, was there to argue the case and to ensure that the constitutional provisions and the provisions under the Financial Management and Accountability Act were presented to the court. So the court is aware now and has a precedent and
Correct.
make the law more certain now as to what we do in relation to constitutional entities.
And it was well timed also. I think this judgment was well timed.
That's right.
As it pertains to the budgetary year and so forth. But Mr. Ramsatan, I see that we have a few more minutes. I actually want to just put something out there as a member of the Public Accounts Committee. Every Monday, as you know, we would reach as the PAC, as we call it, at Parliament. And we get on with the scrutiny of public spending. Basically, that's our function. Now, one of the things that I actually want to bring to the public's attention is the fact that, as you know, as we can see via social media and all the other medias, we have several ministers out of the country firstly, I can say that we had a meeting last Monday, and at that meeting last Monday, the there were several persons absent from the government side of the house. But we had three members present, and Mr. Edgel being one of those persons. Halfway in the meeting, he got upset over a matter and he just left. So leaving the two other members there. But I say that to say a motion was put to the floor by the government, by the opposition members, so that we can have meetings on Fridays also. Because as the public should know by now, those of you who don't know, we are still scrutinizing 2016 report, the Auditor General's report for 2016. So we have a huge backlog of work to
Yeah.
go through. Now the opposition is saying that we are here. We're here to work. We're here to go through. And everyone would know 2016. That was our year. We were in office in 2016. We're not afraid to scrutinize 2016. Let's just go ahead with the work. However, we have a resistance from the government side, persons saying that they can't show up and all of that. So a motion was put to the floor for us to have meetings every Friday moving forward, in addition to the statutory meetings on Mondays, so that we can get that work done. Now at the meeting on Friday, the opposition, all four the opposition members of the Public Accounts Committee showed up for that meeting. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. and everyone was present before 10 a.m. No member of the government side, the government side has 5 members, no member of the government side showed up. Both the agencies that was to come before the committee to be examined did not show up. Both of them sent in excuses, one being the Ministry of Communities and the next one Communities, and the next being the Ministry of Public Health. But what is more alarming is the fact that no member of the advisory team, which is the auditor office, no representative from that office was present. And I can say that right now that the opposition members of the PAC, as the chair and the 3 other members, saw it as a blatant disrespect for the PAC altogether, for the audit office not to be. We understand that from time to time an officer may not be able to physically come before the committee or to join the Zoom link because we operate on both platforms because of COVID. Every agency so far has utilized that platform when they can't come physically. But we also know that if an officer can't make it, then that officer is required to send a representative. Nothing as such was done. Now, coming to the Ministry of Public Health, and I just want to put this in really quickly. The Ministry of Public Health came before the PAC in July, before we went into recess. The PS was completely ill prepared to answer any questions. It was a total disaster for that meeting that we examined the Ministry of Public Health back in July. Now, they were asked to go and go through the report to make sure that they are okay with the different paragraphs and so forth. So when they come before the PSC, they will be ready to answer the question. Last Friday was the second time the Ministry of Public Health was invited to come since we came back out of recess. And both times they sent excuses, and the excuses being, oh, they're dealing with COVID, which is a very frivolous excuse at this point in time. So I say all of that to say that we would have heard the government ministers speaking very loud. We heard from Edgel, we heard from Gail Teixeira when they had the whole Patterson debate, when they were removing David Patterson as chair, and they were saying that we were trying to stymie the work of the PAC. We did not want to push forward with that work. And now it has come full circle, and we can clearly see that now the opposition is there. They're working. Oh, we have a new chair. David Patterson is showing up to all his meetings. He's very, very active in these meetings. He's basically saying, hey, you removed me as chair, but I'm still a part of this committee, so I'm going to drill y'all anyway. And we have the situation in which now the government side is, they just refuse to show up altogether because they do not want us to move from 2016, and they see that we want to move aggressively through these reports, so they know that we're going to come to their years pretty soon if we continue with this pace, so they're going to do everything possible to slow us down.
That is so true, and I'm glad that you hit the nail on the head. They do not want you all to come to contemporaneity, meaning the 2021 and 2020. They do not want y'all because y'all walking too fast. And they know that when they come to 2020 and y'all start scrutinizing all the nastiness that they did, let's say with the flood relief,
COVID
and
relief.
the COVID relief and whatever, you are going to make them look so corrupt that the entire country will, reflect upon it and come to the realization that they did a wrong thing by voting for them. But the very important point here, Juretta, is that it is contemptuous behavior on the part of these officials from the various ministries that you all direct to come for the hearings, and they're not coming. And I want to believe, because I did go through, as I said that I will, certain rules governing the non-attendance by these people. They could because remember, Parliament is like a court of law. We inherited, it is a court. It is a court sui generis, meaning a special court all by itself, but it is a court, and it can issue summons and it can issue a whole lot of things for contemptuous behavior, and it could even arrest and so on. So it is important that these people understand that they must come when the chairperson is called. But again, like the police force, political directives are going to them. I now did a little investigation, and indeed, them people say, well, if the minister tell me not to come, what you want me to do?
Yep.
I said, that is what is happening here now.
They're trying to protect their jobs.
Exactly. And the politicians are directing that these people don't go. And we got a little slapdash kind of journalism in Guyana. These journalists should ask those officials, reporters and so on, why you didn't go when you were asked to go, so that we will know what the truthful answers are. I didn't go because the minister tell me not to go. And so I didn't go. So this is but another example of the dismantling of institutional democracy. If the PAC can't get its witnesses as to how monies were spent, then the entire core function of the PAC will now be eroded completely. And so you wouldn't have a functional financial architecture. And this is what the PPP is doing. So they're overseas. They don't want to come, and they don't want the officials to come in their absence. Well, that is absolute nonsense. But as I said, the other motivation for this is to drag it out so that when y'all wouldn't have early time to come to 2020 and 21 and make the thing almost dated, not outdated, but within the dates that whenever, like when 2021 come, 2022 come, 2023 come, you will be dealing directly with those years. So you could do proper assessments. You could even do what is called forensic audit of certain spendings and all of that. Forensic audit.
That's what they're afraid of. That is what they're afraid of. But Mr. Ramjatan, it was a pleasure having you here tonight. I know we're out of time. I know once we start talking about these very crucial matters, the time kind of go away. But I'd just like to say to the viewers, for my final remarks, we bring the truth every single Saturday evening. We make sure that we bring the raw truth to you. And every single time we come before you, it is sad that we have so much bad news to bring. We continue to be here at your service, the Alliance for Change, and my leader, Mr. Ramjatan, is with me here this evening. I would just like to give him the opportunity to give his final remarks before we pull the curtains down on tonight.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Juretta. I'm glad that we managed to do this program this afternoon. And viewers out there, please ensure that you make time off to look at this program every Saturday. We bring as best as possible all the issues topical during the course of the week to give it to you in our perspective. Our perspective is important because when compared to that of the others, I believe that we are far more truthful and analytic in what we are saying. So be viewers of this Alliance for Change on the MOVE program. It is important for your political education and political consciousness. We will bring sunshine on these issues. We will try as best as possible to analyze them for you, as we have been doing. And we have done quite a bit here this afternoon. Thank you very much for being with us for this 1 hour from 8 to 9 o'clock. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much.
Good
Thanks,
evening.
Director.